Bend and Scoop is brought to you by Harder Concepts, the best bars in North Dallas. Eat, drink, party harder.
I love Bend and Scoop, man.
You want to hear some music? You'd like that, wouldn't you? Well, today you're going to get all the music you want.
The request lines are now open. KGFJ Soul Radio.
Do it now, man.
Request lines are up.
It's open, man.
Got any Blue Oyster Cult?
No, I don't have any Blue Oyster Cult. I ate 34 pairs last time around. Where were you? I was that close to working at 7-Eleven, you know.
Pass the word along. Tell the men it's time to shoot the moon.
Shoot the moon!
Out there on the microphone. On the microphone.
Shoot the moon. Shoot the moon.
The attitude dictates that you don't care whether she comes, stays, lays, or prays. I mean, whatever happens, your toes are still tapping.
Hey, Strawberry! Oh, Strawberry. Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing? This is my friend.
Hey, how you doing, man?
What you looking at, man?
Oh, nothing. I wasn't looking. I wasn't looking at his neck, man.
Can you honestly tell me that you forgot the magnetism of Robin Zander or the charisma of Rick Nielsen?
That's kid stuff.
Kid stuff. Well, how about the tunes? I want you to want me. The Dream Police. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Build your muscles picking strawberries. You know, Bend and Scoop.
Maybe I could get you a job with United Fruit. I got a buddy with United Fruit.
Start with strawberries, you might work your way up to these goddamn bananas. When, boy, are you gonna get your act together?
We're creating a society of cell phone crazed, marijuana smoking zombies.
Coming to you not quite live from Lukewarm Tallboy Studios deep in the land of Gar, this is Bend and Scoop, the podcast featuring music, mirth, and minutia, focused on exposing artists you probably haven't heard, but should. I'm Bob, and I'll be your tour guide on this amazingly asymmetric auditory adventure as we journey to the center of your cochlea. Welcome to episode 63. Bend and Scoop is brought to you by Harder Concepts, the best bars in North Dallas. Visit one of the now 6 great Harder Concepts locations in DFW, including Scruffy Duffy's, Ringo's Pub, and the brand new Bottle Rockets, all at the Shops at Legacy in Plano, Saintsbury Tavern at Austin Ranch in the Colony, the Mucky Duck at Addison Circle in Addison, and Addison Ice House at Vitruvian Park in Addison. All Harder Concepts locations have great food, live music, an amazing beer and spirit selection, and a wait staff that's second to none. Whether you want to hang out with old friends or meet some new ones, there's no better place to get together and watch your favorite sports or hear some awesome tunes. Eat, drink, party harder. Joining us at the end of the show to play a round of Is That Your Vinyl Answer in the Groovin' After Party will be our very special guest, the legendary Pleasant Gehman from the Devil's Music podcast. We spread the gospel of vinyl here at Bend and Scoop, so be sure to tell us all about your favorite neighborhood record store by posting to @BendScoop on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag SpinMomandPop. Our record store of the week is Sisters of Sound in Manhattan, Kansas. You can follow them on Twitter at Sisters of Sound, on both Instagram and Facebook at Sisters of Sound Records, and you can check out their website at sistersofsoundmusic.com. Kicking things off this episode is a band from Brooklyn called Future Punks with an X. This is from their 2020 album called 2020. This is Woman's World.
I'm here to tell you fellas it's a woman's world, and that's right.
From Seattle, that was Dude York. Off their 2017 album Sincerely, that was Something in the Way. Have you ever wanted to host a podcast? Well, all you have to do to join the Mike Hunt and host your very own episode of Assume the Juxtaposition is send me your topic idea to lukewarmtallboy@gmail.com. You can follow Assume the Juxtaposition on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at AssumeTJPod. Here's a band from Brooklyn called Dismal Stars. From their 2019 album Genie, this is Come to the Water.
What happened to, oh, Roger, you're my best friend?
I just don't feel like performing a sexual act on Fred's daughter.
Okay. How about if she performs one on us?
No.
Please?
No. What is so important about sex?
What's so important about... That's like saying, what's so important about laughing? Or Duke Ellington, or the World Series. It's one of those things that makes you feel like you're really living, like you're glad to be alive.
I am already glad to be alive. I don't need to play tonsil hockey with some English tart to feel good. I already feel good. I feel wonderful. In fact, I feel quite tingly.
That's right. Those are my tingles you're feeling.
What do you mean?
It's called sexual excitement.
It is?
Yes. And if you think this feels good, wait till you feel what hot, passionate bathing feels like.
And what happens? Bigger tingles?
Oh, major tingles.
But will she still respect us in the morning?
She doesn't respect us now.
From Manchester, England, that was Chemtrails, off their 2020 album The Peculiar Smell of the Inevitable, that was Frightful in the Sunlight. How Many is a podcast where I get together with my friends Jesse, Junior, Gary, and Scott to debate a variety of pop culture topics, including movies, sports, TV, music, and more. You can follow How Many on Twitter at How Many Podcast and listen at howmanypodcast.com. You're really going to love this next one. From New York City, this is Hennessy from the 2020 EP Hennessy, Episode 1, Let's Pretend It's the 80s.
Everyone looks beautiful. cross. Wash yourselves clean. Wash yourselves clean. And do it over. Wash yourselves clean. Wash yourselves clean. Do it over. Oh, you know I gotta fight fair, 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 fight fair.
From Chicago, that was Dream Version with the title track from their 2017 album Fight Fair. Plausible Deniability is a monthly podcast I co-host with my pal David Miller, which you can follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Pause Deny. We post new episodes on the first day of every month. From Fredericton, New Brunswick, here's Jason Anderson off his 2008 album The Hopeful and the Unafraid. This is July 4th, 2004.
The decaying bursts of fireworks, a dandelion pop, or a chandelier, comets and scissors, sparks. Our night made from mosquito bites, thick breath and knives. In love, Independence Day, two clenched fists in the air, chanting you. I say, I will wait. I will shiver, I will wait. I will stutter, I will wait. I will wait. I will wait for you, and I always will. I will wait for you, and I always will. I will wait for you, and I always will. I will wait for you, and I You say, oh, Jason, are you still waiting? You say, oh, Jason, are you still waiting? Oh, Jason, are you still waiting? I am, and I love this part. You say, oh, Jason, are you still waiting? It's true, and I sing my heart. You say, oh, Jason, are you still waiting? I am, and I love this part. You say, oh, Jason, are you still waiting? It's true, and I sing my heart. I will wait for you, and I always will. I will wait for you, and I always will. I will wait for you, and I always will. I will wait for you, and I always will.
I swear it, there's nobody else here.
Come on out, you little slut.
Who is she calling a slut? Shh.
Deny it. Where is she?
It was me.
Vic, stop that!
What was you?
The voice you heard. I was talking to myself. Your perfume suits you. It's cheap and common.
At least she slapped your side.
And who did I hear you say was fondling you in the men's room?
Me.
Liar.
How dare she?
Oh, Edwina!
Edwina! My name is Peggy, you pig!
Oh! No, let me explain. It's Edwina Cutwater. She died today.
You did it with a dead woman? No. Roger, you are sick. To think I came up here to even discuss marrying you, despite the fact that I heard what you're doing to my mother.
How did your mother get into this?
I just found out you're going to court tomorrow to represent the other side against my own mother. You go to court tomorrow, we're through.
If I don't, your father will have my balls.
Then it's either me or your balls, Roger. You can't have both. Well?
I'm very attached to them, Peg.
Goodbye, Roger. By the way, I never liked your dog. And I think Jazz is stupid. And I faked all those orgasms. Sound familiar?
Yeah, well, I faked mine, too.
You don't know where you're going. And you don't know where your home is. But I know those reasons why. Tonight, I want you on my side. It's another Friday night. Talk to me. I've got nothing in my life. Talk to me. Make me believe you love me. You live moment to moment, all alone, and not sure where you're going. Tonight, I got you on my side. It don't feel right to not put up a fight. It's another Friday night. Talk to me. I've got nothing in my life. Talk to me. Make me believe you love me. We're not coming back. We're lost, not to be found. Yeah, we're never coming back. It's another Friday night. Talk to me. I've got nothing in my life. Talk to me. Make me believe you need me. It's another Friday night. Talk to me. I've got nothing in my life. Talk to me. Make me believe you love me.
From Kansas City, that was Berwanger. From his 2019 album Watching a Garden Die, that was Friday Night. Campfire Songs is a podcast where I get together with my buddies Todd, Jim, and Tom to share and discuss songs with each other. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Songs Campfire and give us a listen for more great music. And don't forget to stick around for the end of the show, when we'll be joined in the Groovin' After Party by our special guest, the legendary Pleasant Gehman from the Devil's Music podcast. From Richmond, Virginia, here's a band called Gold Connections. Off their 2018 album Popular Fiction, this is Bad Intentions.
Waste my bad intentions on you. Waste my fake confessions everything came at such a cost. Well, don't mind the writing on the, don't mind the writing on the, don't mind the writing on the, don't mind the writing on the wall.
It's the new Yes album, Tormato. You can grab onto it now at Record World and the record shops at CSS for just $4.77. Plus, save on every Yes album from Atlantic Records and Tapes.
That was longtime Athens, Georgia mainstay David Barbie from his 2017 album 10th of C, that was Coils Coming Along. If you want to listen to all this great music without having to hear me ramble between songs, be sure to check out our Bend and Scoop Spotify playlist. If we played it and they have it, you can listen to it there. And if you enjoy listening to what we do here on Bend and Scoop, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy what we do here at Bend and Scoop and would like to show your support, please feel free to drop a little something in our virtual tip jar at patreon.com/bendscoop. And a very special thank you to our first ever patron, the lovely Rebecca Lynch, who will forevermore be my favorite listener. Whenever you listen to this podcast, know that putting it together is an effort that comes from all of me.
Roger Cobb was a rising young lawyer whose first big case.
Guess what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to come back from the dead.
Was a basket case.
What am I missing here?
You see, thanks to His Holiness Bracalaza, my soul is going to leave my body forever and become one with the universe.
At which time my soul will enter her body.
Ah, good plan.
They put her soul in a bowl. But things got out of control.
I lost her.
What's that?
Then it worked. Oh, my Lord! I can't believe this. I can't even die right.
Somebody please tell me this is not happening.
We obviously have mutual control over our body.
Our body! It's my body! I'm not sharing my body with anyone!
Everybody's gonna be real disappointed.
Now, Edwina Cutwater is dead and living in Roger Cobb's body.
You know, you have a great deal to learn about making someone feel welcome.
Let's get something straight here. I never liked you when you were in your body. I certainly don't like you in mine.
She's spoiling his love life.
Edwina!
My name is Peggy, you pig!
Oh! No, let me explain. It's Edwina Cutwater. She died today.
You did it with a dead woman?
He's ruining her afterlife.
I can't go in there. That's the men's room. Just shut up and do as I say.
She's getting under his skin.
Don't I excite you?
Edwina, go away, will you? I own that body. What if you got it pregnant? You have no right. No, you have no right. It's 2:00. I want you out of me by 3:15. Now, where's the Swami?
Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin in All of Me.
People listen to people.
So listen, people.
Welcome to the Groovin' After Party. Come on in and pour yourself a cold one.
Joining me now for our Groovin' After Party here on Bend and Scoop is Pleasant Gehman from the Devil's Music Podcast. Welcome, Pleasant.
Hey, nice to be here with you.
Tell everybody about the Devil's Music. It's a great podcast.
Thank you so much. The Devil's Music Podcast it's kind of like the intersection of rock and roll and the occult, which has been major parts of my life ever since I was about 12. Both of them sort of hit at the same time. And so on the podcast, I interview people that, are really notable in rock and roll or punk rock, and also a lot of people who are really well known in the occult community, who are usually always into rock and roll. So, and then I've had a few awesome comedians on, like Margaret Cho and Dana Gould, and they're all huge music fans, and they've all had paranormal experiences. So it's a win-win situation. It's also really informal. It gets really stupid and crazy. Like it's not. I never have set questions. It's just conversations, And a lot of times, some of the rock and roll people I've known for since the 70s, since punk rock. So there's always a lot of really wild stories going on that would probably never happen anymore. And if there would have been social media in those days, we'd all still be incarcerated.
Yeah, one of those obviously was your very first episode, which I listened to with Belinda Carlisle, who you, I guess, have known since y'all were both teenagers.
Yeah, we were also roommates together when the Go-Go's first album came out, and it went from being like a crazy little punk party house in Hollywood overnight to like it's an episode of It's a Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the Go-Go's documentary and I thought, wow, this is great. They really get in depth, and it's not just the typical glossy retrospective, but you guys really got into some stuff. It's like I've never really heard her talk about some of this. It was great. Got talked about the Germs and all the punk rock from back in the LA scene in the 70s. And oddly enough, the name of this podcast comes from that first Cheech and Chong movie, Up in Smoke. And you even said you were an extra in that Battle of the Bands scene at the Roxy.
Yeah, I was in it. Everyone from the whole LA punk scene was in it. It was just wild because later on, Lou Adler became the producer of a record for one of my bands, the Ringling Sisters. But at that point, the only way punks were making a living in the 70s was by being extras in films because we couldn't get jobs. And I mean, people didn't even look that crazy in those days. There was only 3 colors of hair dye, which was like black, Lucille Ball red, and like just completely bleached white. And almost no one was old enough to have tattoos. No one could afford leather jackets. So it didn't look like what it morphed into. But still, none of us could get jobs because in those days, if you wore all black, people were horrified.
Yeah. And speaking of the Cheech and Chong films, another guest you recently had on was in the second and third movies of his, Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman. That was also a really great episode. And I guess you've known him for quite a while as well.
Yeah, I've known him since punk rock, too. I mean, I always refer to punk rock. I always call it punk rock, like as though you'd say, like, in the Cretaceous period when dinosaurs roamed the earth, or in medieval times. Like, I just think of punk rock as an era. Yeah, I have had the good fortune to have a life where I was really close friends with a lot of people that wound up getting super, super famous. And, on my podcasts, like we never want to violate anyone's, or in stuff that I write too, because I've written for like 2 chapters in each one of the editions of John Doe and Tom DeSavia's book. Like anytime I'm writing about crazy shit that went on in those days, I always try to run it by people I know because I don't want to like embarrass them. But most of them have just said at this point, I'm over 60. I don't give a fuck.
And I have both of those books. I've got a backlog, and those are up pretty soon in my rotation, both parts of the John Doe book. I guess one's focused more on the 70s and the other one's more on the 80s. Is that basically?
Yeah, or it's like the early 80s. It's like the early origins of LA punk. So yeah, the first book covers like the early days of late 70s LA punk. And then the second one covers right at the start of the 80s before the scene turned into the hardcore scene, which is kind of what a lot of people think that punk rock only is, you know?
Like Black Flag, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like Black Flag and a bunch of other bands, like very male driven, you know, like a lot of people. Yeah, they don't realize that like the LA punk scene and maybe in some other cities was, you know, it was very female driven. You know, there was women in lots of the bands, women making fanzines, women taking photos, producing records, playing in bands.
And one of those women, of course, talking about John Doe, would have been Exene. And Paul Rubens, I didn't realize that he and she grew up together in Florida, that they knew each other before coming out to California. See, that's part of the stuff you learn when you listen to your podcast. You get that kind of information.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty crazy. I think a lot of people didn't realize that. There's so many little funny things like that come out. Like I remember, okay, so just to switch into talking about records for a minute, I remember reading rock and roll magazines, and I saw this one picture when I was about 12. I think it was in Rock Scene. It might have been in Cream, but it was David Bowie, Iggy Pop, and Lou Reed all together. And those were already some of my favorite artists. And I remember just staring at the picture in amazement going, oh my God, they know each other.
Did you ever have a chance to get into the whole scene there at Roddy Bingenheimer's English Disco, or were you too young for that?
I lived in LA when I was really little, but I was born in New York and I was living on the East Coast until 1975 when I moved out to LA when I was 16. So I just missed Rodney's, but at that point Rodney's had closed, but there was all these gay bars that were actually juice bars, you know, so they let people in of all ages, you know, and some of them had food, and those were the only places that teenagers could go to besides like the Whiskey and the Roxy, which also had food. So we couldn't get into like regular rock clubs. And of course we could go to concerts, but they were expensive. And I'm saying that in quotes because I think I paid $3 for a ticket. The Queen at the Santa Monica Civic, which was the first concert I went to in LA. But there was all sorts of stuff going on in those days. And those bars were kind of like the continuation of Rodney's. But there was still this like really, I always call it the fuzzy gray between glam rock ending and punk starting. And It started with disco kind of. And like, you know, a lot of the gay clubs we were going to played a lot of disco, but they'd also play like Bowie and Susie Quattro and stuff. But when it started getting to be more disco, there was kind of like a division in the scene. And that concurrently was happening with punk. So the people that liked the disco and liked to be all glamorous gravitated towards the disco scene. And the people that liked to read and liked horror movies and were really uproariously crazy all gravitated towards the punk scene.
So Pleasant, let's learn a little bit more about your own personal musical journey. And we're going to play around here of something we like to call, is that your vinyl answer? We'll start by asking you, what do you remember being the first record you bought with your own money?
Well, the first record that I ever got, I didn't buy with my own money. I shoplifted it with my own criminal intention. And actually it was 3 records in one day, but I was living in New England, so I had one of those big parkas on. Shoplifting a record is like, that's a big feat, but not if it's in the middle of winter and you've got a big snorkel coat, Eskimo parka on. So the records I stole them on the covers alone, and there's still 3 of my absolute favorite records. And this trifecta was Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges, Aladdin Sane by David Bowie, and the New York Dolls' first album.
Those are great ones.
I have a funny story about a record that I bought. I had saved up for Kraftwerk's Man Machine record. Yep. I think they were about $2.99. And seriously, that was a lot of money when that record came out. I mean, not a lot of money, but for a teenager, crazy punk person living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a million other people, it was a lot of money. So I bought it. I walked home with it. And I was so excited to put it on the turntable. I put it on and the Sound of Music came on. Literally, not the Sound of Kraftwerk, but the sound of
Julie
music,
Andrews.
Julie Andrews. And I was like, what? And then there was songs from Mary Poppins on there. There was all this stuff. So I brought it back to Tower Records and I was like, I think they mislabeled this record. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, it's supposed to be Kraftwerk, but it's like Julie Andrews' greatest hits. And they didn't believe me. So they played it and it was. So they gave me a refund. And then I got the Kraftwerk record and they played it there to make sure that it really Kraftwerk, and it really was. But in hindsight, I so wish I would have kept that record, but I just didn't have enough money. I mean, it had the Kraftwerk label on the inside and everything, but it started off, the hills are alive. And I was like, at first I thought it was because they were from Germany. And then I was like, wait, are they Austrian? And then it just kept, yeah, that was nuts.
Do you still have the 3 that you mentioned earlier?
I mean, they're probably not playable from living through so many iterations of my rock and roll houses, like getting vodka spilled on them, like leaving records out of the sleeves, walking around on spike heels when you're drunk.
Pleasant, who do you own the most albums by, and which album of theirs is your favorite?
I would probably have to say David Bowie, and Aladdin Sane is still one of my favorites. It's a toss-up between, I don't know. I can't even decide with Bowie. I can't answer that question. It only took me till about a year and a half ago to stop crying every time I thought that David Bowie was dead. I know I sound like a fangirl and I'm going to own it, but I mean, that was like taking away a piece of my entire adolescence, it felt like to me. It wasn't like today. You couldn't find people that were considered like quote weirdos, all the time. There was no social media, and you felt like you were living in a void. And then when I started meeting people that like Bowie, that was such a frame of reference. But I also have a funny Bowie album story. I got some import from Japan. It was an import album. I think it was a live album. And all the graphics and everything was stellar, but they had this like an in the gatefold that had lyrics to all of the songs that he sang at the concert, but the translation was phonetic. Like there was, I can't even remember what song it's from. It's from something on Diamond Dogs, but the line was, I love you in your fuck me pumps. On the album, it said, me love you in your fumpity fumps.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
I have to tell you another thing about records that I'm really obsessed with. And when I discovered this, I tore open my whole entire record closet and spent all night looking at every record. You probably, I'm sure you know about this, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners do, since this is all about vinyl. But at the end of every record where the grooves run off, I don't know what that place technically called, the part near the label, you see like the mastering number, but a lot of bands would write, or they'd have the engineer or whoever was mastering the record scratch like a little message into it. So I can't even remember what the first one I saw was, but I looked at it and I was just, wow, what is this? And then I had to rip open like all of my records, and a lot of them had it. And so then every time one of my bands made records, and we made pretty many records, I would always insist on doing that. Like in my band, Honk If You're Horny, we were like a trailer trash X-rated country band that started as a joke but lasted for 5 years. And we had like a hit on Euro MTV and stuff called Gas, Grass, Grass.
I remember those bumper stickers.
Yeah. That whole song was written off bumper stickers. The chorus is gas, grass, grass. Nobody rides for free. Don't come a knocking if this van's a rocking, because I'm with stupid and he's with me. But so the runoff grooves on that one, on one side of the record, it said, take a picture, it lasts longer. And on the other side, it said, what are you looking at, shithead?
That's awesome. I love it.
And then the Screaming Sirens had some, and the Ringling Sisters had some. That was just fun to do, those little weird secret things that were in records.
Now I need to go dig through my vinyl and look and find those messages, because I had never realized bands were doing that. We're putting...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think the first one that I saw might have been on a Queen record or a Bowie record, but then I ripped through it, and people have been doing it for years.
Wow.
And like famous bands and stuff. It's crazy. I don't even know what that part of the record grooves is called, but a lot of people do it, and it's fascinating.
Pleasant, is there a specific album that you've purchased more times over the years than any other?
I'm sure I've probably done that with Bowie records, because of the the sloppy way that I used to keep my records. And I have done it with a number of 45s that weren't that rare that I got at swap meets. But I'll tell you another thing I did with one of my records. My band, the Screamin' Sirens, when our first record came out on vinyl and on a cassette, and the second record, they told us it was coming out on limited cassette and CD, and I burst into tears because I was laying on my bed sobbing, just going, no one's gonna listen to this, because no one I knew could afford a CD player, and this was very early in when CDs were, and I was just traumatized also because the cases were so small. And I used to love to like read all the lyrics or look at the inserts or, open the gatefold, or maybe a poster was going to come inside, of all those old records. That was always amazing. Because there was only 3 or 4 television channels on in America in those days, and there was no cable yet, no social media, no internet, no email, no nothing. It was like you could while away an entire afternoon or a whole evening, like just playing records with a friend of yours and like dancing around the living room or the bedroom, like waiting for a show like, the Midnight Special or Don Kirshner's rock concert or any of those to come on. That was like, because they were never playing the good stuff on AM radio, and FM radio was like a little bit too hippie-ish for my taste.
A lot of times on Midnight Special and Don Kirshner's rock concert, they weren't even lip syncing. They were actually playing in a lot of those.
Yeah, they were playing live. After I came out here, I went to filmings of a couple of shows. It was amazing.
Yeah, I missed those. Those were great shows. Is there a person who has a particularly large vinyl collection? Like who would you say has the largest one of anybody that you know? And what size is yours?
I don't even know what size it is. It takes up a whole entire closet. It's not in a very good order. It's got like horrifyingly great like novelty singles, because I was really into that. I used to be able to get that at the Capitol Records swap meet in the 70s. So I would just pick up, if a record had a wacky name, I would buy it for like a dime or a quarter. You would wind up getting some really incredible, like either white label reggae records that had sort of made their way into LA, with like really famous people playing on them, but singing filthy songs. Seriously. And, that kind of stuff I used to play all the time. And then there'd be really good, like independent label of blues and rockabilly from places like New Orleans or like somewhere in Arkansas, So I've got a lot of that kind of stuff. But my neighbor Morgan, who is in her mid-20s, and she's got like one of the biggest 78 collections I've ever seen in my entire life. And we're talking bigger than like Phil and Dave Alvin's collection or like Fast Freddy or even Lux and Ivy's collection of stuff when I used to hang out with them a really long time ago. She has so many 78s and she knows who everybody is on every record. And she's got like obscure records from people that like I never even heard of that weren't even actually that obscure. It was just they were like in some kind of genre that I hadn't gotten that into. But I mean, she's got everything. It's amazing. One of my day jobs is dancing. So I've been a professional belly dancer for like well over 30 years, as well as a burlesque performer. But somebody gave me, this guy that was like a record dealer, he came to a yard sale of mine and he asked if I had any records, and I said I didn't really have any I was selling, and we started talking about records, and then he found out I was a belly dancer. He gave me like a few giant boxes of those old How to Belly Dance for Your Husband records that have the great covers, and so I've got a lot of those. But I also have a bunch of Arabic 78s from Cairo, because Cairo used to be like the Los Angeles or like Hollywood of the Middle East, like how Mumbai is now, like that's where all the music and films that were going all over the Middle Eastern world went. So I've got a whole bunch of incredible Arabic 78s from the 30s and the 40s. And Arabic music doesn't have harmonies in it, and it's got very specific Arabic song structure. It's got like a 24 note scale as opposed to what we have. But on a lot of these 78s, it was Egyptian artists trying to make music that sounded like big bands or like the Andrews Sisters. So there's Arabic women singing in harmony, which never happens on an Arabic record. There just isn't that, you know, maybe nowadays with samples and techno and stuff, but not for decades, you know. And so the first one I put on, and these records were in really good condition, but they hadn't been stored that well. So a few of them just crumbled in the sleeves, which weren't really sleeves. They were kind of like those thin cardboard boxes that 78s used to come in. But I was listening to it and I heard this beautiful Arab orchestra and all the cracking and the popping of the old vinyl. And then I was like, wait, something's off here. What is it? And then I was like, oh, wow, those girls are singing in harmony. This is nuts. And then, you know, there'd be songs that started out with whistling, just how like, you know, pop from like the 40s or the 50s. I mean, that was just wild. I hadn't even like entertained the notion that other countries were putting out pop records that were very similar or derivative of American music. You know, I hadn't even thought of that. That was just wild to me. When I started belly dancing, someone asked a boyfriend of mine, so what do you guys listen to when you're at home? He said, I don't know. And none of it's in English anymore.
Pleasant, what's your favorite record store? Do you have a place that you frequent these days?
Probably I'd say Amoeba.
Yeah, Amoeba's great.
I'm like right in that neighborhood. My favorite record store, I used to love Rhino Records and Bomp Records.
And of course, you and Belinda talked a lot about the Capitol parking lot, the Capitol Records parking lot.
That's the swap meet that I was telling about. That was like going to a nightclub because the Capitol Records swap meet, it was on a Saturday night and technically it wasn't supposed to open until like 7 a.m, but vendors would get there, you know, and start unloading like their orange crates full of records at like 3 a.m. And that was like perfect amount of time for all of us to get from like the Whiskey or the Starwood or the Mask or whatever club we were at. It was kind of like a whole party there because there was very, very serious record collectors, but there was also like everyone from Hollywood, from all genres of music or clubs. Once the doors to like clubs were closed, if there wasn't an after party, or even if there was, you would wind up at some point at the Capitol Records swap meet because that was like, it was as big as an open air swap meet. It was all records and you could drink beer there or have like, you know, some kind of alcohol in a paper bag and nobody cared. I mean, the police presence was nothing in those days and, you know, no one had guns the way they do now. There wasn't homeless. So, I mean, you could just wander around there and it was like a big giant party. You'd stop at someone's booth or table and just be like digging through the bins of 45s and vinyl records, you know, like LPs and just looking at them. But then, you'd meet new people there. You'd find out about new bands there. Bands would come there and pass out flyers.
It sounds amazing.
So fun.
Love to have been a part of that. So we have one last question. What is your all-time favorite cover song? Did any of your bands do any covers, any notable
totally,
covers?
All the time. Like we did one of the Screamin' Sirens' absolute audience favorites was a double shot of My Baby's Love by the Swingin' Medallions.
Yeah, that's a great tune.
I was one of those people that would put a record on and just put the arm across the stereo so it would play continuously. And I know some people wanted to kill me, but if I had a favorite song, I would just do it or just play the whole album all day. But so a double shot of My Baby's Love was on for such a long time that I'm sure all my roommates wanted to murder me, but it was perfect for the Screamin' Sirens. And then actually also the Sirens and Rank and File, we were playing together in Sacramento. And the Sirens were already doing Honky Tonk Women as a cover. And I think Rank and File was doing some covers too, but I was in the dressing room just yelling like a parrot, I keep calling Dr. Love. Like that. I thought Chip and Tony Kinman were going to kill me. And instead, well, Chip answered, I'm the Doctor of Love. And then they both started playing it and doing like Kiss, like hair tossing motions. So we all wound up doing that on stage as an encore that night. And people were horrified. I mean, maybe not horrified, but their mouths were just open in amazement. They thought we were going to play like some Johnny Cash song because this was, you know, when both of our bands were classified as like cowpunk, which many of us really liked that label that much. But the term Americana wasn't in use, but we did a really long extended version of Dr. Love. And then they did Cat Scratch Fever with us too.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, Pleasant, thanks so much for being on. Real quick, how can folks follow you and the podcast on social media? What's your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those?
My Facebook is Pleasant Gehman, PleasantGehman. My Twitter is Pleasant Gehman1 because I wanted to make it 11 because that's my favorite number, but I ran out of characters. And then my Instagram is Princess of Hollywood, and it's all one word. My account is named after one of my books, and you'll know it because there's only just like the only 3 genres of stuff on it is rock and roll and old punk rock pictures, a lot of dance pictures, and a lot of pictures from Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Because I've hung out there since the 70s, and that was my saving grace playground all through the pandemic. And I still go there every day to feed the cats and the ducks.
Folks, the Devil's Music Podcast. Give it a listen. Like I said, it's a great show. I'm going to go back and listen to all the ones I haven't heard yet, but the ones I did listen to were just absolutely captivating.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being on here with you.
Don't worry about it, guys. It's all in the mix.
Bye-bye, lard-ass.
Bend and Scoop is a production of Lukewarm Tallboy Studios.
We will return tomorrow morning with the sun.
Good evening, and have a good life.